beautiful soul, welcome to my channel. My name is Joanna. If this is your first time watching, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving us your attention. My intention is always to help you know yourself. So if you are into that sort of thing, I hope you stay. I hope you like what you hear. If you enjoy this information, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel, to share it with a friend or two, to like, to comment. At the end of the day, my wish as Joanna is to share with you information that will help you understand the power of your mind. And you have a very powerful mind. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you come back. For those of you who are returning, thank you so much for being here. Without you, I wouldn't do this, and I absolutely love what I do. I love channeling higher consciousness information that provides us with the ability to know ourselves, to know our potential, to live up to our potential. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is the shadow self. It is the part or parts of ourselves that we tend to hide from, we tend to not want to see, we tend to want to reject or deny. And we'll talk about why it's important to work with the shadow, to integrate the shadow, and what are the benefits from healing our shadows or integrating our shadows. For one, when we begin to integrate our shadows, we no longer live in separation of ourselves. We are more apt to feeling whole. And what does it mean to feel whole? Well, quite simply, that nothing is missing. And this leads to a tremendous expansion of one's own experience. And I presume you all want to expand your experiences. In other words, if you're used to living in a box, which we all do, expanding this box to realize more of your potential seems like a good proposition. So my intention for you is to hear this information, see how it feels for you, and hopefully begin your own process of integrating your shadows. Or if you have already begun, continue working and healing your shadows, because that is, they're saying that's the ticket to your freedom. So facing our shadows, integrating our shadows allows us to feel whole, and it allows us to feel a lot more inner freedom. So the other thing that I'm going to do, which was suggested to me, that as I go through these top 5 benefits of facing your shadows, I'm also going to pull a card and ask the universe to give me additional message that somehow corresponds to what we're talking about. So there's going to be 5 different messages. They may all resonate with you. One may resonate with you. So listen to them all and see if whatever comes through, the knowledge that comes through, can be applied in your life. Because at the end of the day, I can channel a whole bunch of philosophical information, but if we're not able to put it into practice, then it just remains as information. It does not become our experience. And what we are really wanting is, and desiring, is a greater experience, a more profound experience, if I can say it that way. So what is the shadow? What is this thing called shadow, Joanna? Well, shadow, simply, to put it simply, is an aspect or aspects of ourselves that we have hid from, denied, or rejected. And generally speaking, in my personal experience and working with clients, those are, I would say always, but those are almost always, in my experience, tied to some level of discomfort or pain or suffering, which means these are the aspect of us that have not been healed yet. And what does it mean to heal, really? In a higher, to say it from a higher perspective, healing simply means coming back to oneness, when we are no longer in separation of ourselves. Because when we are in separation of ourselves is when we experience the greatest pain. And I'm not talking about your hand hurting because you hit yourself. I'm talking about internal pain, our internal suffering. So we could say that healing the shadow allows us to experience less suffering. Now, I am all for that, but it requires us to look at things about ourselves we have chosen consciously or unconsciously to deny. And there's various reasons for it. We always have a reason for denying ourselves something. That's just the way it is. So, but integrating our shadows is what's going to lead us to tremendous growth and inner peace. And I look at shadow as source of information, because that's what it is. Your shadow is a source of information. Generally speaking, we as humans tend to shy away from our shadows. Why? Because they're somehow scary. But what's interesting is that we often fear things we don't understand. The moment we begin to understand something, the fear either completely goes away or is lessened. So in order for us to fear less or be less afraid, it only makes logical sense that we have to shed some light on our shadows. And that eventually leads to a much more profound human experience, and it eventually leads to integration, which leads to wholeness. So the first benefit of, one second, okay. Facing your shadow is like reaching a certain level of understanding. Once we have a certain level of understanding, let's say a higher level of understanding, we begin to create much more consciously. And we are all magicians. We all create each and every moment. Most humans create unconsciously. That's just the way it is. We humans create unconsciously. And I would say, as far as what has been written about, that 95% of everything that we do stems from our unconscious behaviors. And when something is unconscious, it's very difficult to work with it. So if we want to create more consciously, we have to become aware of our unconscious. That's where our power is. For example, if one of your shadow aspect is, I am not good enough for whatever reason, that shadow aspect will prevent you from attracting abundance to you, from attracting more to your life than what you have, simply because there is a pattern of thought that says, I am not good enough. And when you think of yourself as not good enough, you think of yourself as less than. And what ends up happening in those situations is we end up with this belief system, we end up putting things and people on pedestals. So if we are less than, then we have to be less than something else. The moment we put that something else on a pedestal, we are no longer in alignment with it. So how does this relate to money? If you are wanting more money, for example, but you believe you are less than, that vibration is not going to help you reach what you would call abundance, because you are not on the same frequency. Therefore, facing the shadow of the not good enoughness is necessary in order to be more in alignment, for you to be more in alignment with attracting more of what you want. I'm sure you guys know how this works. It's basically law of attraction. Which is why oftentimes people say law of attraction doesn't work. Oh, it works really well. We are just trying to attract something based on our conscious understanding, but we often don't realize that we have an unconscious understanding of what it is that we want. So to give an example of money, we can say to ourselves, I'm worthy to receive more. I'm worthy to receive more. Why shouldn't I receive more? I want more. I want more. But if there is an unconscious belief system, a shadow that says you deserve less, you can spend a lot of time creating what you want. In your unconscious understanding of yourself, you're still not in alignment. So you could be visualizing, you could be repeating mantras, you could be doing many things. If the shadow aspect is not in accordance with what you are trying to achieve, your shadow aspect will almost always win. Now, through repetition, you eventually end up creating a different process, but that takes a long time. So, in order for you, for example, to experience bringing more abundance, you have to first look at what part of you has been standing in the way of you experiencing this abundance right now. And that's where the shadow lives. Okay. So the more understanding we have of our shadows, the more information we have how things work. And mind is extraordinarily powerful. I don't feel I have to explain how that is. It just is. And we use our mind every day in order to create, to co-create with the universe. We co-create unconsciously with a very powerful mind. So if you have an unconscious belief, I am not enough, and you are a powerful creator, you will powerfully create the experience of you not being good enough. And that's a shadow aspect at work. What we want is we want the opposite. We don't want your shadow dictating your experience. We want your light creating your experience. What's the difference? Shadow is the quote unquote consequence of a belief of lack. It's a belief of lack. Why is it a belief? Because who we are outside of our human consciousness is infinite with infinite possibilities. So there is nothing that we are lacking, but our understanding of ourselves is that we lack something because we live in a space of perceived separation. So ego is the byproduct of us believing we live in separation. My human mind, Joanna, is trying to figure that out, but I'm just channeling right now. Okay, so I hope this is making sense. So going back to benefit number 1, working with your shadows allows you to have great self-awareness or greater self-awareness. It helps you understand your thoughts, emotions, and your behaviors. In other words, why do I do what I do, even though what I'm doing, I don't want to be doing? Okay. And self-awareness helps you make conscious choices rather than being driven by some unconscious patterns. So facing your shadows allows you to have a greater sense of who you really are and how you work, so that the how you work becomes more conscious. Of course, when we are more conscious, we have more choices. And it's not that the choices haven't been there before, it's we're not conscious of these choices. So facing our shadows gives us greater awareness, which gives us the ability to have more choices or to see more choices, whereas before perhaps choices were not available to us. Again, it's not that they were not available to us, it's that we couldn't see it because of our limited perception. So greater self-awareness allows you to see how you limit yourself. And of course, why would you want to limit yourself, right? So that's the first benefit. Now I'm going to pull a message. I'm going to ask for a message from the universe. And I just looked at the clock. It's 1441, 1414. We are entering a new construct in terms of what we believe. And this is the effect or benefit of raising our consciousness. Okay, so let's see what the message is. Use your cunning. Very interesting message. Use your cunning. Actually, what I heard was use your charm. So I'm going to tune into this message and see what that is. Now, interesting, because the word cunning is getting my attention, because I tend to think of cunning as something bad. Me thinking of the idea of cunning as something bad is the concept of thinking it's bad is from the idea of judgment. So me looking at the word cunning, I automatically somehow judge that there is something negative here. But they're saying, if you remove the word bad from cunning, what do you see? And what I get is be precise. What does that mean? To be precise in your thoughts, to be precise in what you are seeing and how you are seeing it. Let me just see if I can. I'd like to have this in a different way, please. When you see yourself more fully, you begin to realize that you are capable of pretty much anything. When you reach the state of realizing that you can create pretty much anything, it puts you in a tremendous position of realizing how powerful you are. Now, your power always lives within you. It's not outside of you. I cannot give you $5 worth of power. Your power lives within you. It's about the realization of your power that allows you to fully take advantage of this power. Now, we could say that's cunning, or we could say that is a strategic way of using our power. That's an interesting message. I'm going to show you this again. Okay. Notice this woman. She has a smile on her face. It's like she knows what's going on. She's confident, but it's like she knows she has this secret inside of her. And she knows that it's not that she doesn't want to share this secret. It's she knows that this secret is something that everyone has to arrive at in their own unique space and time of this journey. So in other words, she's telling me that she knows something I may not. But whatever she knows is extraordinarily powerful. And the way she's looking at me, she is saying to me, see yourself how God sees you. Okay. See yourself how God sees you. And until I choose to see myself that way, I'm always going to live in the illusion that something is lacking. Okay? So that's the message for you. I don't know how it lands for you. It's a very interesting message, but that was just channeled. Okay? Also, she feels very light to me. Whatever it is that she's holding within herself, that secret that everyone has access to, which is not a secret. It's just, if we don't have access to it, we might think it's a secret. Because she knows this inside of her, not only is she feels lighter, she's not afraid of anything. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be afraid of a mad dog chasing you. Yes, run. She's not afraid of living her life fully. She's not afraid to express herself to the fullest of her potential. She's not afraid of being who she is. Why? Because she holds no judgments of herself. She holds no judgments of herself. Perhaps that's the message. Perhaps the message for you is judge yourself less. Okay. Benefit number 2, emotional freedom. Integrating your shadow allows you to release suppressed emotions and trauma. It leads to emotional liberation and greater sense of peace, inner peace. Inner freedom. Who doesn't want that? When you begin to work with your shadows, you begin to access aspects of you haven't accessed probably for a very, very long time. And by accessing these aspects of you, you are in a position to release an enormous amount of potential. Why? Because your shadow holds within it your potential. Facing your shadow allows you to live up to this potential so that your shadow doesn't limit your potential. And that essentially means us being able to express ourselves more fully. So the energy goes more towards expression rather than holding back. And our fears, our shadows, always hold us back. That's just the way it is. So let us see what the message is about emotional freedom. Okay, what would you like us to know? Gather your tribe and remember your wings. So there's 2 messages here. Okay. This woman, this vision, makes me feel like she's liberated. She has liberated herself from her internal prison. She realized who she is without the need to prove herself to anybody. She knows who she is from inside out. She's not afraid of owning aspects of herself that are scary, but she is in charge or in control of those aspects of her, of those aspects of herself. In other words, she lives with those aspects of herself in acceptance of it. In other words, even though they may be scary, she's no longer in denial of it. And that is what makes her so powerful. That is what makes her so powerful. I am being drawn to the bear, so the bear may mean something to you. It may be some sort of a symbolism. It is the symbolism of strength. Thank you. Perhaps this is also indicating that when she is in that state, when she has liberated herself, this is truly where her strength is. She's no longer in denial of her strength. And I've seen this many times, including with myself, that we sometimes tend to deny our strengths. Now that's weird. Why would you want to deny your strength? Well, perhaps because I don't believe in my strength. Well, if it's my strength, why don't I believe in it? That's a good question, isn't it? Why wouldn't I believe in my own strength? Perhaps I've learned some time ago that I am less of a person, which I have, and somehow this belief doesn't allow me to embody my strength. Okay, there's something there. Second message, remember your wings. Again, this speaks to me about a woman, you, or a male, who is no longer at odds with herself or himself. There are different aspects to her. There are different ways of seeing that she has. There's different perspectives that she embodies, but she knows who she is. There are different perspectives that she embodies, but she knows who she is, which again makes her a very powerful person. I also want to say she's being watched over. So perhaps the message to you is you are being watched over as you are going through this process of integration. Okay. She's also not at odds with her wisdom. She's not at odds with her wisdom. Why would anybody be at odds with their wisdom? That doesn't make logical sense, does it? But if we are at odds with anything, we have a good reason. Where are you at odds with yourself? Every single person carries within them tremendous wisdom. Every single being. Let's talk about people. That wisdom is accessible through in various ways, through meditation, through contemplation. Wisdom is inherent to who we are. There's different levels of wisdom, I guess, but wisdom is inherent to who we are. Perhaps what makes us not being able to tap into this wisdom is our shadow self, because that shadow self stands in the way of us tapping into that wisdom. So one could say that facing our shadows, integrating our shadows, allows us to tap more into our inner wisdom, which we all naturally possess. So not only does it allow for emotional freedom, it allows us to embody the wiser aspects of our being. And your higher self is a lot wiser than your human self, because your higher self has awareness that the human ego doesn't have, because the human ego is limited. All right. Number 2. Benefit number 2, improved relationships. Shadow work can help you understand and heal relationship patterns that stem from an unresolved issue. How many times have you done the same thing over and over again, realizing that it's not giving you what you want, but you're doing it anyway? It's because you're coming from an unconscious space. And this is very prevalent in relationships, because that's how we know ourselves the best. We all bring with us certain patterns, and some patterns are wonderful, some patterns, let's say that, we could adopt new patterns. For example, if someone is in a relationship and they always get defensive and they don't allow feedback to come to them, then that means that the defensiveness is coming from some unhealed part of themselves. So imagine someone being in a relationship, and every time you bring something up, the person gets defensive. It's very hard to have a conversation, because when someone gets defensive, it's like they're blocking what's happening. So if the person who is defensive, for example, understood why they're defensive and understand the pattern of their defensiveness, and see how their defensiveness is not yielding what they want, addressing those patterns and those unconscious beliefs will help the person in that relationship, because they will then potentially become a lot more open to feedback. When someone is open to feedback, then a conversation can take place. So this is an example how it can help. Facing your shadow can help you with patterns in relationships. Now let's see what the message is. I'm noticing that the cards don't necessarily correspond directly to the points, but it's like the messages have its own unique frequency. Maybe it's just exactly what you need to hear. Okay. So thank you. Oh, there we go. Practice flexibility. What does it mean to be flexible? Well, in the simplest terms, to be flexible means to not be rigid. And rigidity, in certain situations, rigidity is necessary, but in life, rigidity can conform us to living a life we don't want. In order to experience more of life, we have to allow ourselves to move beyond our current experience. But if we are too rigid, in our current experience that we're not going to open ourselves to something more. So as we go through this change right now, as the whole world is going through a massive change, it absolutely requires us to be more flexible. Flexible doesn't mean weak. In fact, flexibility is a strength. So this is a message about achieving greater sense of flexibility by facing our shadows, because our shadows tend to keep us in a very rigid space. Our shadows create our prisons. And of course, if you're in prison, you don't have a lot of flexibility. You're just kind of stuck. So to get out of our own prisons, I could say, is to, first and foremost, adopt the idea of being more flexible. And the question you might want to ask yourself, in what situation could I be a little bit more flexible? And if I was a little bit more flexible, what would that mean? In other words, give and take. Are you in a situation somewhere where there is a need for you to do a little bit more give and take? Perhaps you need that from somebody. If something is always one-sided, as in a relationship, then you don't really have a relationship. You're just alone in a relationship. I suspect if you're hearing this, there's a need for you to look at being a little bit more flexible when it comes to relationships, flexibility. And every single person will receive this message in however you want to hear it. Flexibility does not mean giving yourself up or giving yourself away. That is not flexibility. That's not flexibility. Flexibility is being able to be in a situation where all parties, or let's say in a relationship, both parties get what they want, and finding a mutual understanding in order to make that happen. The word is mutual. Okay. I don't know why I want to give this example. If you're trying to, for example, if you're trying to educate someone on what their quote-unquote problem is, but they're not ready to see what the problem is, there is no amount of forcing that on them for them to get it. So an alternative way for you to help them understand what's going on with them perhaps is to approach them from a space where you ask someone a question. And I don't know why I'm giving this example, but it's supposed to come out this way. So I don't know how it fits with you. I would love to see your comment. But being flexible doesn't mean that you stop doing something or you don't do something at all. It simply means a different approach. There is something in this message for some of you in relationship where you might want to look at adopting a different approach. A different approach at handling something, a different approach of approaching somebody. There's a need for you to look at a different approach, and that will apply differently to different people. Okay? So that is your message. Is there anything else? This person, girl, woman, lady, is very content with herself. She's just peaceful. She's okay with taking risks, but she's also okay with looking at the risks from a certain perspective and deciding, is this the risk I want to take? So she's very peaceful, but she's also contemplative. Peaceful and contemplative. As a rule, I believe we humans would benefit from being more contemplative because contemplation leads to a certain level of openness. Okay. So the message for you perhaps is contemplate on your desires and needs, and ask yourself the question, what am I willing to risk or be less rigid with in order for me to achieve that? And that's a question when you ask yourself, you're going to have certain different answers will come up. The more you are in a contemplative state, the more truer your answers will be, or they will be coming more from your higher self rather than your ego. Okay? Number 4, increased resilience. Facing and healing your shadow makes you more resilient in the face of life's challenges. Resilience helps you navigate difficult situations with greater ease and confidence. Bottom line is this: when you begin to face your shadows, when you begin to integrate your shadows, you automatically become less afraid. You automatically become less afraid. The less afraid you are, the more automatically you feel safe. The more you feel safe, the more, generally speaking, confident you become. The more confident you are, the less likely you are to run away from problems, and instead you face your challenges head on. In other words, you don't let anything limit you from experiencing your life to the fullest. In other words, when you face your shadows, you will automatically feel like you are much more in charge or in control of your life. I don't like to use the word control, but there's nothing wrong with the word control. You automatically become more in charge of your life. And I think that's a good thing. Feeling more in charge of my life feels really good. So the other way to say it is that if we don't feel in charge of ourselves, it's generally because the shadow is at work. The shadow aspect is at work. So always remember that facing and integrating your shadows, it's like getting your wings back. Facing and integrating your shadows leads to healing, which is equivalent to freedom. Emotional, mental, spiritual freedom. It also allows you to access more resources. All of a sudden, when we begin to work with our shadows, we begin to see a whole bunch of resources we didn't think we had access to. And that's because facing our shadows, integrating our shadows, allows us to be more open to what life has to give us. We naturally become more open. When we are more open, we generally feel less afraid. And as a matter of fact, feeling less afraid allows us to be more open. So integrating our shadows allows us to become more open to what life has to give us. Okay, so the example I gave at the beginning, if your door is closed to creating abundant relationships, then that's because your shadow is at work. Your shadow aspect is not allowing you to bring that to you. When you integrate your shadow, that door, that block disintegrates, so you automatically become more open to receiving more of what you want. So to put it simply, facing our shadows allows us to experience more of what we want. Because remember, your shadow is always based on fear and limitation. So let's see what message the universe has for us. So this is message number 4. What does Okay, my team, what would you like us to know? Okay. Believe in the impossible. Okay. Need I say more? Believe in the impossible. But here's the thing. If it's impossible, how can you believe it? Right? It is mostly in our minds that we define what's possible and what's not possible based on what we believe. If you believe that you can't walk through walls, which 99.999% of humans believe that because it's so deeply ingrained, it's part of our 3D fabric, you're not going to walk through walls. Yet there are people, very, very few, that walk through walls. It's because they have They have achieved a level of awareness where that belief of I can't walk through walls is no longer part of their expression. It doesn't exist. The belief of I can't walk through walls, it's not part of their consciousness. It's gone. So they will experience walking through walls. And each and every one of us has this potential. Not everyone has the grit to sustain the level of that belief in everyday life. We just automatically default to our ego and our learned perceptions and our conditioning. Okay? So this message basically says, what is possible for you versus impossible is direct result of your conditioning. If your conditioning says you will never be rich for whatever reason, then you being rich will not be possible for you. Okay? And I'm asking, is it really that simple? And they're saying, yes, it really is. But we live in a society when we have layers and layers and layers and layers of limiting conditioning that we have carried with us for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. In fact, that's part of the karma. Karma is essentially an energy, a level of consciousness that allows us to have a certain experience. Once we let go of conditioning, certain conditioning, particularly the limiting conditioning, we will begin to experience a different life. And so conditioning, how is this tied to resilience? It's a separate. So this is like a separate message. Believe in the impossible. If you believe, for example, that you can't have money as an idea, ask yourself the question, why not? Is it your belief? Is it somebody else's belief? Is it your parents' belief? Likely, that's what it is, because we tend to repeat the belief systems that we were exposed to. If you were exposed to a belief system that you can create anything, you're going to go out in the world and the world is going to be your oyster. Will you have challenges? Yes, but you will not stop yourself from experiencing through your challenges. So belief systems are big, and most of our belief systems are on the unconscious level. That's why becoming more conscious is so important. You know the saying, you can make anything happen as long as you put your mind to it? Equally so, you will not let things happen if you put your mind to it. So if you believe that you cannot experience a lot of money, you will powerfully create that experience. That belief about you not being able to create a lot of money comes from a shadow space. You want to understand it. You want to see it. You want to examine it. You want to challenge it. Why can't I experience more money? Says who? Probably your ancestors. And that's just an example because everybody understands the idea of money. Okay. She's also not afraid to show her face fully. She's not wearing a mask. She's comfortable with who she is, and she doesn't ask permission to be herself. She doesn't ask permission to be herself. Why would we need permission to be ourselves? Likely because it was communicated to us that being ourselves is not good, it's inappropriate, whatever. We've learned this when we were young. But she's coming to a space where she's no longer letting those old, outdated rules limit who she is. I'm being drawn to these two birds, and they are hummingbirds. If you've ever seen a hummingbird, their wings flap so quickly, so fast, you can't even see that there's wings. This to me represents that person, potentially you, reaching a much higher perspective. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it's not there. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it's not there. So just because you cannot see something for yourself does not mean it's impossible for you. It's just that you first have to see it. You first have to see it. And what allows you to see the higher potential versus not seeing a higher potential is again directly tied to your shadow, because your shadow is going to limit what you see and what you believe for yourself. Okay. Last but not least, benefit number 5, enhanced creativity and expression. Working with your shadows unleashes creative potential that may have been blocked by fears and insecurities. When we hold ourselves back, we hold our creativity. We hold back our potential. Okay? The whole idea of not being good enough, because the whole unworthiness is so deeply ingrained in societal fabric, limits our ability to create. And remember, you and I, everyone, is a powerful creator. If you were to unpack yourself and have a broad understanding of all your shadows and how you work, you would understand just how powerfully you create. This leads to more authentic self-expression in your personal and professional life. In other words, facing your shadows allows you to no longer hide yourself from yourself and from the rest of the world. And that's very freeing. Which being in that space doesn't limit your expression, it expands your ability to express and to create. So working with the shadows allows you to not only be even more powerful creator, but be more of a conscious creator. In other words, if you are, again, example, if you are desiring something and your desires are aligned with your truth, with your deeper inner truth, it's almost impossible for you not to experience that desire. It may come in a different package, it generally does, but it's almost impossible for you not to experience that desire in some way, shape, or form. You just have to be aligned with it. So working with your shadow integrating your shadow allows you to be more at peace with yourself, more in tune with yourself, your true self, and more aligned with your true self. And your true self, the one that lives beyond the ego and your shadows, is very powerful. And you have access to that part of you at all times. The access that will be limited, though, or I'll say it differently, the only thing that limits you from having that access is, again, your limited ego, your shadow self. So your shadow self limits your ability to tap into the fullest potential of your creativity. Okay, now let's see what the message is. What message do we have? What message does the universe have for us? What is the message, please? Thank you. Ooh. Harvest the honey. To me, this vision corresponds with a very healthy solar plexus. This is where our power center is. And when we feel disempowered, it doesn't mean we don't have power, we just feel disempowered, and how we feel is often what we will do. So this to me corresponds to a health of your solar plexus and health of your GI system, your digestive system. Okay, so some of you may have some issues with digestive system. Some of you may be lactose intolerant. That's just a tidbit here. But this is more on an energetic level. Having a powerful solar plexus, first and foremost, allows you to feel more confident. It's like you own your presence. It allows you to stand tall. It allows you to be proud of yourself. It allows you to feel proud of your accomplishments. it also allows you to be at peace with yourself. Imagine for a moment being at peace with yourself and no longer having a conflict, inner conflict. What would life be like? For me, personally, as Joanna, to be more at peace with myself is, to me, it means not questioning whether what I do is real or not real to the degree that I do. This is my shadow. It's taken a really long time to overcome it. It's still there. I have to just chip at it little by little. And that me questioning what I do all the time and have been doing it for 20 years, you'd figured I would be done with that. No, is directly tied to the idea that at some point in my life, at a very young age, it was communicated to me that I am nothing, I will be nothing, and no one will ever want me. So the idea I received about me is that I am somehow not good enough and therefore not capable. And that seeps through when I do this work. And as you know, channeling is often very challenging because you're receiving information and you have often no way of validating whether it's true or not true. How is this tied to confidence? The more I work with my shadows, the more confident I become. It's not that I question less, it's I don't let that shadow self of mine take control of what I'm doing. I have it here, I'm aware it's there, but I allow what wants to come through me anyway. So I am in much less resistance. So having a healthy solar plexus allows you to be at less resistance, not only with yourself, but also with the universe. And change. We don't want to resist change, and we often do. And I recorded a video a few days ago on how to deal with resistance. So if there is something that you are resisting or want to understand your resistance, you might want to look at that video. So this is talking about a healthy solar plexus and a very healthy I am, your I am presence. So those are the benefits of working with your shadows. There is various ways and various techniques of approaching this work. Shadow work is primarily all that I do. That's why it's if not the one of my favorite subjects to talk about, because working with shadows to me is very freeing, not only for me, but also for the clients I work with. So I want to give you some tools, free, doesn't cost you anything. Click on the link below and you will be directed to free tools, to meditations and exercises and techniques on how you can start working with your shadows or looking at your shadows or recognizing your shadows. Inner child work is also connected, and oftentimes our shadows are connected to our inner child. They were created at a very young age. So there's like 4 or 5 different techniques and channel meditation on how to help you connect with your inner child. So all you have to do is just click on the bottom and you'll be taken to a site and you can download that information, cost you nothing. So that's what I have for you. If you are looking for help with someone holding your hand on how to move through your shadows and integrate your shadows so they can ultimately feel more freedom, you can contact me. There is information is available everywhere. In fact, information is free. It's sometimes having someone help you with the process is necessary. For one, you can't work on something you can't see. So unless someone helps you see something, you can't work with something. And shadows are in the dark. We often don't see our shadows, so having someone helping you work through your shadows can be very helpful. But anyways, the tools I'm giving you will absolutely and definitely help you, at least to start the process. Let me know how this was helpful. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you next time, and enjoy the process of integrating your shadows. Take care.